This is the PowerPoint lecture for Kinesiology 5308, Sport Leadership Textbook. Shepherding Sport for Development Organizations. Sport has the capacity to transform individuals through physical, emotional, psychological, and social, and spiritual development, while simultaneously playing an integral role in community development. In reading this chapter, understand that in sports settings, as with all areas of life, some groups are dominant politically or socially. It could be due to socioeconomics, race, or any other factors, sometimes religion, that may allow for power imbalances that could reinforce a dominant class of people. This concept carries over into the remaining chapters of the text. The fact that there is even such a thing as a sport for development and peace organization, it is an admittance that making positive social change requires confronting those things that are dominant in terms of the power dynamics in sports and in society. According to the text, there are several categories for sport and development for peace initiatives. 1, conflict resolution / sport and peace. 2, cultural understanding or sport and social cohesion. 3, educational awareness / sport and education. 4, empower marginalized groups / sport and disability / sport and gender. 5, encourage physical activity / health or sport and health. And then 6, drive economic development, infrastructure development, or sport and livelihoods. And here's a question as you consider these throughout the chapter. Are all of these required for an organization to be considered a sport for development peace organization, or are these just different types? Also, which of these SDP initiatives does your organization conduct? Think about that as you go through and read through this chapter and listen to this lecture. The first edition, called Conflict Resolution / Sport and Peace. Sport is a diversion or distraction. Sport can be used as a distraction from deviant behaviors or as a distraction from more important things too, which is definitely not a sport for development and peace situation. Diversionary programs attempt to provide youth or adults with positive activities to distract them from delinquency and crime, and/or from spending time with peers who might encourage that behavior. Do schools and universities do this? Well, they definitely do it. It's just a matter of whether or not they're intentional. Think of people that you've spoken to in your life that said, the only reason I got through high school, the only reason I got through college is that I knew I had to stay eligible for my sport, right? It may not have been intentional, but in those cases, sports and universities definitely served as a way to distract and keep a person doing positive things instead of negative things. Now, does your organization do this? Next, cultural understanding / sport and social cohesion. The first edition of the textbook called this Sport as a Platform. In other words, harnessing the power of sport to achieve some sort of cultural or social objective or significance. So think about social issues and how you might use a sport organization to address those issues. So some examples, Tommy Smith and John Carlos at the 1968 Olympics on the medal stand, throwing their fist up in the air, or NFL police brutality protests, or various NBA initiatives over the decades. Does your organization do this? Educational awareness, sport and education. Some examples of this might include the GP Project, a Brazil-based multimedia initiative that uses football, soccer for you Americans, as a platform to stimulate gender dialogue, empower female players, and challenge discrimination and promote social justice. This also plays to the next program type, Does your program do something like this? Use sport as educational awareness. Empower marginalized groups, including sport and disability or sport and gender, sport and minority groups. The first edition referred to this as sport as a right. SDP programs encourage social inclusion, allowing opportunities for all to participate in sport, regardless of culture, gender, race, nationality, religion, ability, class. Some examples, the MYSA, which operates a program that uses soccer as a method of inclusion. That's discussed in the textbook. This is a non-textbook example. Various national programs run through national health programs, such as England's This Girl Can campaign. You can go to their website at www.thisgirlcan.co.uk. Its intention is to boost sport participation in women, but not just any specific women, but women of all varying life stages, ethnicities, body types, etc. And that's evident on the video and the pictures used on the website itself. Does your organization go out of its way? Does it have as a purpose? Does your sport organization empower marginalized groups, whether it be race, disability, gender, etc.? Encourage physical activity / health or sport and health. The first edition referred to this as sport as a hook. The sport skill is secondary goal to the life lessons being learned, but sports are the hook that entice young people to participate. So the idea of this is, and the reason they probably changed the terminology in later editions of this textbook, was likely due to many of the different types of SDP programs using sport as a hook. So if you think about it, all these different programs that are discussed as part of this chapter, how many would you have participated in, or how many would you have even heard of if sport wasn't the thing that was used as the hook to get people involved? This could be considered tricking participants with sports, but I don't know if that's, I don't know, is that ethical? Is that a positive ethical thing to do or a negative ethical thing to do? We're going to trick kids with sports to bring them in and do these other things that are healthy anyways. I'd like to think that that is a positive outcome and not unethical, but others may disagree. Does your organization use sport as a hook or a trick to get people to be more physically active, to be healthier, and to interact between that world of sport and health? For those of you that are or were college athletes, why did you choose the university that you did? How much of that percentage choice was athletics? Is that okay? The text says, quote, once the student athlete is accepted onto the team, they will get the chance to play. I'll answer this one for you. That's not always true. So is using sport as a hook, right, to get people into a college university situation, is that okay? Especially in the case where maybe there's too many people for the actual number of playing and participating positions. To some non-scholarship universities, prey upon people's, sometimes unhealthy, motivation to participate in sports. What things are and aren't promised in recruitment? Have you ever encountered situations where completion of the college degree was not a primary goal of the student? In a case like that, what responsibility does the coach have to keep kids accountable and keep them on track, even if they're technically academically eligible, but not really on track to actually finish? What should a coach do? How should they step in? That's an ethical concern to consider with this particular type of SDP program. And then drive for economic development, infrastructure development, and sport and livelihoods. The textbook has much more information on this. Does your organization do this? What about college intramural sports? Could they be any of these things? Conflict resolution, cultural understanding, educational awareness, empowering marginalized groups, encouraging physical activity, drive economic development. I would think several fit that, right? Would you consider intramural sports programs? What about youth sports programs? What about junior high competitive athletics? What about after school intramural programs or boys and girls club? Which of these different types of sports programs fit into these different categories of SDP organizations? So the textbook lists out some key skills for SDP leaders. Note that these carry across to all sorts of leaders and managers in sports. Effective communication, managing the stakeholders, building a winning team. In other words, if you don't have a good product, you won't be able to fulfill your mission. More on this later. There's a book called Mission Drift that discusses this in the context of Christian organization. Understanding how to use sport as a tool for development. And then there are more details on these specific skills listed in the textbook. Finally, some things to consider. The textbook says, quote, SDP programs are not about winning tournaments and trophies, but are they? Because what happens if you are using your sport or organization as an SDP platform, but you lose all of the time, either in the business part or the sports part? You've got a bad record or you're losing money. Well, what happens is, despite your best intentions, you will lose your platform. Your organization will fail, or you will be removed from your leadership position. So it's important, even in these sport programs that are designed to help marginalized people and to increase education and to increase health, they have all these positive goals. There has to be some measure of success, or you will lose that platform to do those awesome, awesome things. Quality is still of great importance. At this time, please proceed to the next course requirement.